Welcome to Soul Unscripted. This is my little video podcast where I sit with spiritual seekers, entrepreneurs, and conscious creators for real, unscripted conversations about what it actually looks like to live a soul-aligned life. This is about no filters, no fluff. It's just presence and truth. And I am so honored today to have today's guest, Kate Graham. So, Kate, I want to hand it over to you because you are just like a woman of multifaceted, just everything. And I want to give you the opportunity to kind of share a little bit about what you do and who you are and guide this conversation to the next level.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, thank you for having me. I love unscripted kind of conversations and sort of easygoing, see where it goes things, because I think it's a lot more easy to get to know someone through that rather than, oh, I have all these perfect questions for you. So I'm sure some interesting stories will come out because of this type of style. So that's great. So yeah, I'm Kate. I go in spirit circles, shamanic circles by fire warrior or riding on light, but always go by Kate as well. And a lot of what I do now is I'm a shamanic oracle and artist. So shamanic oracle, meaning I really appreciate the ways of shamanism and incorporate and include them in a bit of my non-ordinary worldview. As well, my main focus within that would be divination or understanding future or present through a spiritual or maybe a psychic telepathic type of means. I've done thousands of psychic readings, which is really wild to say at this point. Still feeling quite young in my life. It feels like I've stumbled upon quite an interesting career. I never thought I would be doing this. I have a lot of different healing certifications, and I've done a lot of different things in my life. And I actually would self-identify as an entrepreneur even before I would self-identify as a spiritual practitioner, which is interesting. So, but it feels very much like business has been a spiritual awakening journey for myself as well. So I'm happy to talk about anything as it relates to that as well. My main baby right now is OracleFest. It's quite a new, but really beautiful, really big vision of empowering oracles worldwide. And how could we do that? How might I be able to bring people together to light up the spiritually sovereign parts of us so that we can make good, clear decisions about what we're going to do with our future world, our generations. Yeah, I can get a lot more into kind of the reason as to why I follow all these different things. But those would be the main ones. And my artistry comes through visual arts and also through music and through writing as well. And sometimes dance and lots of different things. I sometimes stand-up comedy. So I really am a woman of many different interests. And I live nomadically, which is also kind of an interesting thing people find about me. I have no fixed location. I go where spirit tells me, and it goes really well for me. It actually serves me really well. It's not stressful at all at this point in my life. So yeah, that's all kind of introducing pieces of me. And my main interest in healing work would be ancestral healing, which is actually why I'm in Germany right now, because I was just in the Netherlands, focused on learning more about my mother's side, the Dutch side of my family, and healing maternal lines. So we can talk mothers and healing and anything in between.
Oh, I love all that. And I knew, I mean, just from your bio that you gave me, but I knew it was even so much more than this. And you really, truly are like a woman of so many talents. And I just love that. And I have to say, when you were talking about like how you kind of came into this and the entrepreneurship part of yourself. So because that's me. I mean, that was my education. For 25 years, I've been an entrepreneur. I've had many different forms of businesses. And if you would have asked me 5-10 years ago, if I would have been doing this, even when I started to kind of like really learn the modalities that I utilize, I would have said no. I would never have a business around this. It just didn't seem possible in some cases. Like that business, that entrepreneur, that strategic like mind just didn't seem to meld with this. But now oh my gosh. I mean, I see how they come together so beautifully. And so I get you, right? Like I am an entrepreneur, but I've brought that spiritual aspect, the energy, all of that into entrepreneurship, and it has just been absolutely amazing. So I wanted to share that because I love how things so perfectly align. Where it's like we don't even necessarily know where these conversations are going to go. And then you mentioned that, and I'm like, I totally get you. Like, I really, truly do. So I love the living nomadically because oh, I've had so much change in my life, and I keep kind of looking at like what's next for me, right? My kids are older, and there's a little bit about that nomadic life that seems it's drawing me in. So, like, how long have you been doing that?
Hmm. So it's funny because some people would say that I've been doing it my whole life because my parents did move houses a lot when I was young. So I think I was in like 9 different houses by the time I was 18 or something, um, which seems kind of crazy, right? Like it's like, huh, yeah, I guess we did. We moved houses a lot, but when you're a kid, it's just normal, right? You're like, well, this is. I remember there was one bigger move because it was like 5, 6 hours away from the friends I'd grown up. That obviously affected me more deeply, but the other ones were more house moves. So the idea of changing house has never really been that big of a deal to me. I never really felt super attached, other than the one that we left when I was young, and it was the 6 hours away. I loved that house, but these are the things that I was like pretty familiar with. So even like my parents nowadays, I'm like, you only have yourself to blame, right? Because you just started me on this track. So like, if you're annoyed about me being nomadic, like that's on you. um,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. But I would say so. Uh, Basically, it was I really wanted to live nomadically when I was in my early 20s. I loved the idea. I was really into the tiny house movement way before it gained popularity, and everyone kind of thought that's what I would end up doing. But I had in my mind, oh my gosh, how could you ever do that? I would need to have like $50,000 saved in order to be able to go out and do this. And that's like, I mean, I talk to people, that's how they see it, right? You need to have a certain amount in order to be able to like go and do this amazing life. And I thought, well, yeah, that seems pretty far. It doesn't seem very likely that I'll, easily be able to live nomadically. And then when the pandemic hit, I was less than a year into actually having a healing space, like a location, and all of my work was body work focused. And then the pandemic hit, and I had to let go of my healing space. I closed out a business, a social media and marketing business with my ex-partner. Our relationship was not positive at the time, so we were trying to separate, cut the cords where we could. But that happened the same day we filed our taxes, our last taxes, and then I was told I needed to leave the house that I was living in as well because there was like a status change, like the medical status change in the occupants. And so then I was like, oh, okay, I guess I have to go live with my parents after I was so proud of myself. Like I had to take down my sign that was so beautifully painted by my friend. Like it was a really like, I call it my guillotine day because it felt like everything happened at once and my whole life that I'd set up was like, and that felt like it had happened many times in my life, but this one was pretty major. And I went to a small town. This is kind of a long-winded story, but I went to a small town and I flipped around my career because I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to do this healing work. I was so not okay settling during the pandemic and saying, oh, okay, I'll just work for someone else since like my part-time job bumped me up to full-time online. And I did not want to do that at all. I really wanted to do my own work. That's what I was working towards. But all of my stuff was hands-on, and I knew I wasn't going to get allowed to help people for a while. It was really, really excruciatingly painful because obviously I thought, but I have something that can help people regardless of the risk. I'm willing to take the risk for the benefit of people and their stress levels. And touch is such it like actually it's funny, it like actually really brings me emotion to think of how many people really suffered in that time because they were lacking touch, connection, like, oh, and the elderly people. And, my friend's mom, she was dealing with breast cancer and lung cancer. And I was the only person that she saw. I treated her out of my parents' backyard shed because I was living at my parents' house. and I didn't have anyone else in my bubble but my parents and this woman, and if a neighbor got too close. And she came to see me because she felt like every time she was out in public, she was only a patient. She was just going to the clinics and the hospitals and then staying in her house, getting groceries delivered. And she just needed to feel like she wasn't sick at some point in her life. And so she came to see me to like get a break. And she had amazing turnarounds just in the last hours of her days because of our work together. It would like really relax her and be able to like, yeah, these things really, really had an impact on me. And I thought, well, I cannot let go of the healing. Like this means so much to me. What am I going to do? And so I moved to a small town, started a YouTube Oracle channel, flipped my career into working for myself as a virtual assistant because it was like a skill that I could do. I was like, I'll learn all these online skills through helping other people with their business. And then I did psychic chat work, thousands of psychic chat readings, more and more and more to see, can I do this? Can I do this thing that feels so, I never thought I would do that. I was like, I'm going to be a business owner. And then healing work, oh gosh, what am I going to, what am I going to do? I had done healing work leading up to, but this was so different, right? To trust my hands is very different than trusting my mind and intuition. Very, very different world, right? As you would know. And so after that lease in that small town, okay, I'd flipped everything. I'd really changed it around. I had my YouTube. You can still go see old YouTube videos. I had really short hair and I was like, very innocent, teaching pendulum and things like that. And then I moved to an alpaca farm for 3 months. Kind of random.
Wow.
Yep. So I lived on an alpaca farm for 3 months, 86 alpacas. And I would spend all day, 6 days a week, fully with the alpacas, doing tours, spending time outdoors, really using my body physically because I had been stuck on the computer for like a year. So I really wanted to be out in nature. And I needed to be somewhere that I could just volunteer my time, not have to worry about rent, not have to worry about utilities, but still have some time to work on my healing work. And I started my empath energetics program at that time. And I was studying hypnotherapy. So I'd wake up at 6 a.m. and I'd do my hypnotherapy studies. And then I'd do my alpaca farm day. And then I'd work on my healing business in the evening, day in, day out for 3 months. And then at the end of that 3 months, I had this really awful, this is like kind of an embarrassing story, but I had this really awful vintage RV that was so rickety, it was scary to drive. And I thought, I can't live in this. And it had like a leak in it. And I was just like, what? It was such a spontaneous decision because I knew I had to get out and I was trying to leave a relationship and I was trying to leave the like town really quickly. And it was like a scary ride from where I was to the alpaca farm. I think it was like 5 or 6 hours as well. And then at the end of that time, I sold the RV to some people who wanted to fix it up and make it a cool camper and stuff. And my friend reached out of nowhere from Toronto and said, hey, I have this van. I saw that you just sold your RV. I have this van. It's an ambulance van. I am not using it enough. I'm not very good at negotiations. Why don't you take it for 5,000? I said, done. So I lived in a converted ambulance van and did pet sitting for a year and a half. And then I moved to Scotland for 2 years. And now I've been nomadic since November and we're currently in July. So yeah.
Wow. What a story.
I know.
Oh my God.
It was a lot of backstory to try and explain how long I've been nomadic, but you see why it's kind of more relevant. It sort of happened.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. There's all these like little bits of our stories that get us to where we are, right, into the place that we're in right now. But I can see how like what a journey, like really that was for you.
Yeah.
And oh gosh, I mean, you're talking about COVID. Not that I want to go there, but
I know.
honestly, it was such a transformational time for so many. Yeah, like it really truly was. It really showed us. It showed us how we were not living in alignment. It showed us where we were just really giving and not necessarily happy. Like when all of a sudden the world just stopped. And again, it's the thing, right? It was like all of us. It just paused for all of us. It did not matter where you were in the world. Of course, as things started to kind of move again. I mean, I'm in Canada, which I know it's points or whatever too, yeah. Right? But it's like we were very slow to come out. Like a lot of the world was.
It was slow.
yeah, a lot of the world was back
Yeah.
to normal. We were very delayed here. But yeah, like it just really did. And it did, like, I know myself, so I went through, like, my divorce um was finalized right at the beginning of COVID, which I am
Wow.
so grateful now
Mm-hmm.
that that happened and that it was
Yeah.
done, because, like, let me just say, my separation was not good. And, being in a situation where you've got, like, I heard horror stories from people who, like, they were stuck in the same place, like, locked down together. And I am so grateful that, like, that part was done. And
Mm-hmm.
the next month, the world shut down. And oh, I was
Yes.
so incredibly grateful for. But it really did make me realize, like, that human connection. Um, I mean, I had kids, but, like, they were pretty much on the opposite cycle. Like, one, I'm trying to think, at that point, what would they have been? Like 13 and 15. They basically were up all night and then slept all
Mm-hmm.
day. So they kind of got up around dinner time for me, and then I was going to bed.
Mm.
So it was this, we were on this weird cycle that, like, for the most
Mm.
part, that and they're teenagers, like, they
Yeah.
in their own, yeah, like, I didn't even, so, like, human connection, because there were not many people who were open, to, and especially here, like, if you were
Mm-hmm.
outside talking to your neighbor outside,
Yeah.
you were you were fined like $900.
Yeah.
Like, so you couldn't, like, we were terrified to yell across the street to each other because our bylaw came around. So, like, that
Mm-hmm.
human can, it really made me realize how much I didn't even have that in the life that I was living. Like, I was married, I was in a
Mm-hmm.
relationship, but I was
Mm-hmm.
so disconnected and so, felt like I was alone, and everything. And but then I was all of a sudden free,
Mm-hmm.
but I wasn't, because I couldn't connect to people. Like, we were like, gosh, when I think about, like, how long that truly was. So I can't imagine, like, that woman, and I think that that's beautiful. Like, it was such a hard situation because none of us really knew much about the whole thing, right? So, but I saw how negatively that being isolated played into so many. I mean, my kids especially, like, again,
Mm-hmm.
teenagers, like, they need human connection. Um, and, you know, some people for years completely, like, isolated. And then to see how that then played out, like, talking to educators about, the kids who at these integral, again, this teenage where human connection is so incredibly important, and they didn't
Mm-hmm.
have that. Oh
It's how you
gosh,
figure out who you are at that age, right? It's through your
it
peers.
it really is. And
Yeah.
when you don't have that, so, it's taken a while, but, like, they've come, and I have seen, and I mean, I'll be honest, I at one point, like, one of my son's friends came and lived with us for like 3 weeks, and I was
Mm-hmm.
totally good with it. I was like, no, you know what, you need, and I let, like, my daughter, she went and met friends at parks and did all that kind of stuff. I was like, no,
Yeah.
like, you need, you need that. I'll say too, there are points or whatever, I look back at it and I think to myself, oh my gosh, my Costco order, and then I wiped down everything with, like, Clorox wipes. And
Mm-hmm.
I
That
look back
was,
at it and I think
yeah.
to myself that, like, I was searching high and low for Clorox wipes. I use all natural cleaners. Like,
Mm-hmm.
how it just kind of even, like, flipped me and my world and who I was upside down. But I also
Mm.
look at it as such a beautiful thing because, again, I had gone through this divorce. And if COVID hadn't happened and the lockdowns hadn't happened, I would have been in the busy of,
Mm-hmm.
my daughter was a competitive dancer. We had just started comp season when the world shut down. So I would have been
Oh, right. Out.
5, 6 days, nights a week at the dance studio. We would have been competition weekend after competition weekend. It would have been rushing my son to work and to school and her to school. I would have been busy and all the things. And I wouldn't have really had that chance to kind of, like, sit with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I was forced to, because
Mm-hmm.
there was no distractions. There was very, very minimal human connection, I will say. And well, the Zoom and all of that was great. that human connection, that like actually being in the physical space with people is, you know, we can, yes, we can appreciate this and we can experience it like this, but being in that and actually, again, feeling that energy, that healing from people. So yeah, I don't want to go into that anymore, but like, I just,
Well,
you
it's
took
something
me
that's,
back.
yeah, well, it is interesting because like a lot of what I focus on is ancestral healing in my healing work. And so I'm thinking we got a lot that is healing for our collective when we experience some sort of you know, a collective trauma, we'll say. Well, that was a traumatic or, you know, a very at least shocking time for a lot of people. And I agree that there's some real positives. Like one of the positives for me coming out of that time was a real sense of my own personal energy and channel ability to channel. Because as a sensitive being, like really, I spent a lot of time in other people's energies and not really only with my own. It was
Yeah.
an abrupt awakening, let's say, but also so valuable. I mean, I feel really grateful that it rushed ahead my timeline also for getting online because I suit it well, and it allowed me to be nomadic and try living a little differently. And yeah, but certainly quite a force. And nowadays, I think a lot about what are some of the things that we still need out of that time, because there were deficits that we experienced through that time, and connection is one of them. Deep healing is one of them because there are layers that got you know, shifted for a lot of people through that time, because it just shows you a whole, like it was a flip flop, you know. One of the channeled pieces I was working on throughout those early days was actually this image of an hourglass and how we used to be in much more of a collective masculine energy because of our building. We've done really good job as humans building a whole bunch of stuff. Like it's so amazing. I look really big picture a lot, and it's so incredible. Like how amazing is it? We have cards that you literally we can tap from our phone and pay. I'm not even ready for that yet. That's so amazing to me. And we can fly, but you know, there's all these, there's AI. How amazing is it that that even exists, that someone could create these medicines and, you know, cures for things. Um and of course, holy, did that masculine drive forward come with a whole bunch of BS toxicity as well, right? For all the
Yeah.
forces that have really grown us, we also have patriarchy and these like battles and wars that feel so opposite from a feminine energetic perspective. And I got a lot of insight at that time that we were doing, whether you see it this way or not, it was almost showing me like Pangea when the world was one lump, all the land was connected. And oh, we've come so far that actually we've created divisions. And those divisions don't serve us over time, like as we shift this hourglass. And so a lot of what I really care about on a spiritual and a political, like if spirit is politics at a certain point, there's like a real strong belief that I have that our call to action out of that time is to understand the damage of division and of
Mm.
isolation and of trusting powers and authorities with to the detriment of our own self-empowerment, which is not to say, you know, fight all authorities just for the sake of it, but there is something really key about personal sovereignty and ability to choose maybe autonomy or something that was really questioned for a lot of people in that time. And so it brought us up to a lot of like core values about what is our foundation, our base moving forward. And so these receiving community, like these more intuitive voices were really challenged because there was some real strict ordinance that was expected of our society at that time. So again, we don't have to keep talking about that. There's like some real beauty, I think, in what it's awakened for a lot of people. And I see a lot of people came online spiritually when faced with
Mm-hmm.
themselves, right? Like, whoa. And that happens in all facets of our lives. We come online when there's something that really shakes us, right? And we have an experience of that. And I was talking about this with a friend recently because I did this exercise a while ago of stepping into the footsteps of my father and then his father and then his father and then his father. And so I embody and channel or energetically hold what their frequency is. And I'd done a lot of work with my Scottish side. That's why I went to Scotland. And I actually happened to live at the top of a hill that one of my ancestors had like been dragged through on the belly of a horse to his execution in like the 1600s, and was fed water from this well that was literally at the bottom of like the hill that I chose to live on in Scotland. I had no idea. It's so wild. All of my ancestral, like we could do a whole 5 podcasts on that alone. Huge stories. However, what I have really learned through the Scottish side of my family, there were like doctors and ministers and like military strategists with like, you know, these romantic hearts. And there's like this real care about teaching and how our taking care of our world. That was like really, I learned that through my mat, and holding your head up high through that as well. And my dad is a pretty balanced dude. He's not so spiritual. He worked in technology. He thinks that all the spirit stuff just skipped a generation with him, and that I'm right on track, but he's the one who's not, which is kind of cute. And he's so like reasonable, level-headed, and doesn't really have a lot of health concerns. Like and this is important to explain the story, because I massaged him when I was learning my like advanced Thai massage trainings, and this man had never received a massage in his life. And I was like, how are you not like in all types of disarray? And he really wasn't. I massaged him for 2 hours, and I was like, how are you the most relaxed person I've ever? I said, you work on like technology, you sit and watch TV. He does a couple sports, but you know, he's sitting on airplanes working under machines. You'd think he'd have some back issues. No, like something. Nope. Like he's actually like doing fine. And I asked him, what the heck is that about? He said, well, I just don't really stress about it. So I don't really think I'm in pain because I don't really stress about it. I just don't think about it. Like, it's fine. And it was amazing. It was like actually a mind-blowing moment, right? And when I was stepping into his footsteps, I was like, this man is balanced. Is that what it feels like to be balanced? Like, this is amazing. And as I stepped backwards, I could feel different things. Hardship, you know, my great grandfather, he was a drinker. He was a minister during both world wars. A very, very difficult time to be a spiritual minister and try and help people who are just hoping that they, you know, get to see their children again, or that they'll live, you know. And so I get all these different senses of hardships and things, but nothing super off kilter. And I step into my mom's shoes. Oh my gosh. I was like, what? I felt like so many things going on. And I've always said they balance each other out. And in this way, I really felt it. And as I moved backwards, I felt like my body shift, because my grandmother had one leg shorter than the other. So she always had like she walked with a limp, and I didn't even know her. And it was so fascinating to be like really feeling all these different aspects of how they showed up, how they feel these patterns. And so a big part of what brought me to Scotland in the first place, or brings me to different nomadic places, is like the voice of ancestors working its way through me and trying to say, like, this is what's next, and this is what's next. And I don't know if that really would have clicked in if I hadn't started on nomadic living, because I had to really feel free to leave the comfort that I was in to be able to try and question that, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what it was for you. And I think probably one of the reasons that you were pulled to that was to experience that. Because I mean, you would know, like we hear it all the time now, that our generation, like we've chosen to heal the ancestral trauma. Like we've chosen to heal our ancestral line and everything like that. When I do a soul realignment session with people and we get into the like 3D stuff, it's the, you know, ancestral vows, it's the stuff within our DNA that is passed down generation after generation after generation that we think is just normal, but it's not. Yes. Because it's not energetically aligned to each of us and stuff. So it's cool how, like, again, that you know, your journey brought you into that space and those experiences as well too. And like the stuff about your dad, as you're talking, I'm just like the lesson of like how we are so conditioned to stress and worry. And again, not to go back to that like C word thing that we were talking about, but like in the beginning of that, I remember a friend of mine saying like, and I turned off the news, and oh my gosh, did that not ever just release so much stress? Because I got to the point every day I turned the TV on and I had, you know, the 24-hour news on all day long while I was working, while I was doing whatever. That's just like, of course you're then going to worry and stress and all these things. And we're so programmed that it's like the world is falling, that everything is crumbling, like everything is bad. And we've got to be concerned about that. And so no wonder so many people have so much stress and anxiety and physical ailments caused by that stress and anxiety. And like your dad of just it's just what it is. Like that is, we all should take a little lesson from that. And, instead of making a big thing out of many cases, like, especially if it's stuff that's out of our control, right? Like quite often we really worry about things that ultimately we don't have the control over. Like, so why bother? Like, you know?
Yeah. I see it a lot. So like I do hypnotherapy work, right? So I do see it a lot with like, wow, it's amazing sometimes the beliefs that get just like really tied down and hold someone down, right? And a lot of us aren't in conversations very often where we can check that stuff and bring it up, because we go through our, like you say, like your day to day, if you were just in your day to day, it's like those are just not conversations that we have. It's conversations I have. Like I would have that conversation at a coffee shop, but I'm the weirdo who goes in, right? Yeah. Yeah, I call my dad like accidentally enlightened, because like, here's a trap. I think I was thinking about this a lot this week actually, so it's kind of interesting to talk about. I think a lot of people who get onto a spiritual path, and as soon as they start using spiritual language, they think they've got it. They think that because they've converted the way that they speak, it's translated to their beliefs. And actually, I often see that that's not the case. And someone like my father, he's just got these beliefs that really help him not take life too seriously. And I thanked him recently. The last time I saw my father, I said, thanks so much for lightening up a little so I could lighten up a lot more, because the heaviness of the men and the masculine, like the weight that they were carrying, would have been so much if you had stayed stoic and stern, right? Because he has that edge, as a lot of men in their 60s, they have that, because it's still, they're taking the hardship that their parents went through. And I was like, I'm so thankful. He's like, yeah, I really tried, like he actually thought, oh, I really want to be less serious than my father was. And I was like, oh, you've done that on behalf of like all the people who may come after us or who get touched by me. Like, we don't have to have children to pass on a legacy of healing. And this is like something that's so beautiful. Some people who come to ancestral healing think that like, oh, well, it just stops with me and then that's it. So is it really worth it? No. Like every single person who I interact with is getting healing through my having lightened up and oh my gosh, the ancestors, right? Like all their messages are so much more basic than what we would think. They're always like, we just want you to be having fun and we think you're really good at it and you should keep doing that. And I was like, seriously? I was trying to make you proud, or like like really? That's all you want?
Well, look back at life even of like what our parents, right? And then our grandparents, and like that's what we can we can, third dimensionally kind of see that easier. Like life was simple, right? Like they didn't, and we ate simple, we lived simple, and like most people enjoyed even the work that they did. For the most part, they enjoyed.
They would
right?
build fulfillment through work being fulfilling just for the sake of it being work, right? And it's interesting because we've like grown collectively. Our consciousness has grown, so then we have different problems that hang out in the mental sphere. I think we're seeing a lot of that.
Yeah.
That's one of the books that I'm writing. I didn't mention that in the intro, but I'm writing a book about a shamanic lens on psychosis and mania and delusions. I'm writing it with a psychotherapist. It's fascinating and it's really interesting. Try and look at how we've been viewing reality from a different place psychologically, because I think we're ready. This age of Aquarius, we're ready for a different perception of like, how is reality? Maybe it's not the black and white, psychologically normative way that we've been seeing it. Maybe there's another way that wouldn't make us panic so much about some of these, oh my gosh, I'm going crazy spiritual experiences, right? Like everyone who does this work is like, oh, I really thought I was crazy at that one point, because it's a shared, like it's a collective thing of connecting to that which is not tangible.
Yes. Well, exactly. Like when you can't see it, like I know I went through it. Like it was like, you know, what is going on and who am I? And I mean, all the things, and, having to like, again, too, almost simplify that. Like you were talking about how, like when you go through your awakening, quite often, and I mean, I did that. Like I became super overwhelmed. It was in all of these things, and I realized, okay, you know what? I just need to tune out and tune in. And that was because it was like there was just so much
Yeah,
that
it's very overwhelming.
yeah, and I couldn't even
Yeah.
like necessarily like I started, it got to the point where it was like so much, and I like, this is not true for me. And it doesn't mean it's not true, but it's not true for me. And that became the really big thing where I really truly was like able to step into, okay, what is true for me? Who truly am I? What is my story? What are my gifts? What
Mhm.
is my, like, to really truly tap into as well my intuition, like trusting that and everything. Like, just, I mean, such a journey that like I've definitely fumbled. Like I am not, by any means somebody who's like, I went through my spiritual awakening and it was just all this. Nope, not at all. Like I fumbled. But I believe that there's so much beauty in that because, like, again, that's helped me see things through so many different lenses. So, oh my gosh, like Kate, I think we could sit and chat all afternoon.
Don't test me,
Like,
I would. Ask my mother, I would.
so you and I we're both chatty, so I totally could too. Like we could honestly sit and chat forever. I do try to keep these somewhat, but I mean, I would love to have you on again, and we could totally talk more conversations because I do truly think you and I we could sit and talk for hours and hours. But well, if there's anything that you kind of want to like close off with, anything more that you want to touch on about who you are, what you do, or anything like that. Like I know you kind of touched a little bit on Oracle Fest. Obviously, I'm going to put your bio in the description and any links that you want me to include so people can connect with you. So if there's anything, they want to look into Oracle Fest, anything like that, that will all be there for them to access easily. But yeah, like I want to give you that opportunity to kind of close out with anything else, any other beautiful insight or wisdom that you have, or just something else about how multifaceted and talented you are that you want to share with the world.
I hardly want to go and toot my own horn here, but I think it's good for people to know about Oracle Fest. I think there's well, every one of the speakers is who, especially the folks who have been doing this work for a long time, have been to many events. They're like, hey, there's something really special about this, and I believe them, and I'm going to keep bringing it forward and keep allowing the vision to come through me. I always say I'm trying to get out of the way of it because it is stronger than me, and I'm just trying to dodge and make sure that I'm not the one stopping it. And that does happen. I stand in the way sometimes, for a moment, as is human. Oracle Fest is really near and dear to my heart, and there's many other voices there. So that's what I wanted to mention first, because that shares all of our voices out. And I would also say if someone is kind of drawn to my energy for whatever reason, like maybe you just try following me on YouTube or Shamanic Oracle Kate on Instagram. And I know that stuff will be down there because I think I don't love just saying, oh, hey, come work with me. It's like, you'll know. People just know. They have
Mm-hmm.
this feeling. I'll post one photo and people say there's something about you that feels familiar. I think I just need to reach out to you. And then, if that's it, if there's something that is curious, interesting to you, or that I've said that resonates, I would love to come back again. I have so many different things we could chat about. I'm doing an ancestral healing retreat in Scotland. So if anyone's like, ooh, Scotland, ooh, Kate, ooh, ancestral healing, that's me at my like peak, right? In person, body, spa treatments. There's going to be some epic ceremony and earth burial in the ground. So cool. Very intensive, but also beautiful storytelling and all this stuff. And we'll be in Mount Shasta for Oracle Fest next spring. So you can keep an eye out for that as well. Those are, I think, the main things, and everything else, people will learn over time. There's no pressure. I did want to say something that was coming through as far as a message, if that's okay, which
Of course.
is really, thank you. It was kind of bubbling up as like, say this important thing. It's probably not as important, but I really feel called to, if anyone is still listening, you know, at this moment, to remind you that you have what you need in order to see all of your visions through. There is this feeling that a lot of people get when they're on their path that they don't have enough and they don't have what they need. And for you to just like, really, if you can just try to trust my words right now, you have all the things you need for that just next, just next, just next step. And the pressure of not being the one or the good enough or the there yet is just you getting in the way. So if you're kind of chuckling that, hey, you get in the way of your stuff too, really, really, I want to let everyone know this is, I see this as an absolute truth, that everyone has everything that they need for what it is they're meant to do. Full stop.
That is a beautiful message. And thank you for sharing that, because I'm sure, I know there was a part like that was for me, and I know that there's other people out there that is going to land so beautifully for them. So thank you. Oh my gosh, Kate, this has been absolutely fantastic. Like, seriously, I definitely have to have you on again, and we will chat so much more. And I could have talked to you like for hours today. So thank you to Kate, and thank you to everybody who has listened to this whole episode with us. And yeah, as I mentioned, everything will be in the description box so that you can learn more about Kate, connect with Kate, everything like that. So I hope everybody has a great rest of their day, and we're going to sign off.